Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. This is a theme that one has got to go back to again and again and again, because it is true. And more significantly, because millions of Zimbabweans out there are suffering because we are a failed state. And their suffering will continue until we do something to address this fundamental problem. The level of ignorance in Zimbabwe has contributed to why we are a failed state. The level of ignorance, naivety, and gullible electorate has contributed to why Zimbabwe is a failed state. Yes, Zanu PF has been rigging elections, but after 45 years of independence, one has got to ask, why is it that Zanu PF is still able to rig elections? And the answer to that is the people, as far back as the late 1990s, realized that Zanu PF was rigging the elections. And as long as the regime is allowed to continue rigging the elections, there will be no meaningful change. The country will be a failed state. So the consensus was that the people should elect opposition leaders whose number one task will be to implement the democratic reforms and end this case of rigged elections. Morgan Changira and his friends came on the scene in 1999 when they launched their party. They called it the Movement for Democratic Change, addressing the very issue that the nation was concerned about, democratic changes. And yet, in 2023, as we all know, Mnangagwa went on to blatantly rig those elections. And what is worse, get away with it. Why? If people were following what they had undertaken in the late 1990s to elect a competent opposition that will implement the democratic changes necessary to stop Zanu PF rigging elections, then they should be asking themselves, why is it that we still have a problem? Particularly when that opposition had the golden chance to implement those reforms during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. The truth is, the people have not asked themselves that question. So Zimbabwe's problem is not that we not only have corrupt, incompetent, and murderous thugs in the form of Zanu PF. We not only have corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless opposition leaders in the form of MDC CCC leaders. we also have a problem of a naive, ignorant, and gullible electorate. Many millions out there, even to this day with the benefit of hindsight, still don't know that the primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms. Like it or not, democracy demands that the electorate should be educated, knowledgeable, objective, if they are going to carry out their most secret duty as citizens in a democracy, i.e., to have the diligence to hold the leaders to account. They've lacked that, and we've paid for it. As much as the last 25 years has been about getting a competent opposition to implement the reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections, we have come a full circle. When MDC leaders failed to implement even one token reform during the GNU of 2008-2013, they turned round to their supporters and told them, oh, we don't need reforms anymore. We can win, rig the elections. And the people were gullible enough to believe it. And now the opposition have been in power, participating in these flawed elections out of greed. They know they are not going to win those rigged elections. They know that by participating, they will only give Zanu PF legitimacy. But they've continued participating out of greed. I've often quoted this quotation because it is at the heart of this argument from D Coltart's book, in which he was admitting that the 2013 elections were so flawed, so illegal, the only logical thing to do was to withdraw. But as we know, he and his fellow MDC CCC have been participating in these flawed elections out of greed. As he rightly admits that. So it is for the people to realize what is going on here if there's going to be any meaningful change. And that has been at the heart of our problem. Here is Margaret Dongo speaking on this very subject of the opposition's failure to realize what they are being elected for, that the people elected them to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging elections.
Politics is not a business. This is what I want to remind most of our MPs and other people.
Do you think they look at it as a business?
Yes, they look at it as a business. Because they look at it as a business seriously. Because the moment they go, business and employment creation, because if they go to parliament, you are employed. You get a car, you get a stable salary, and you are paid until your term is over. Already you are employed. If you are out, you're out of employment.
If you serve 2 terms, you get a pension?
You get a pension. Then already, this is why people kill in politics. They kill to be in parliament. This is why we have violence in this country. Because there is no employment. The only employment which is there is in politics. There is no other outside employment. So for them, a very good example is, look at what happened to CCC, the Triple C party. Have a look. When they lost, when they said they were rigged, what I expected from them, I expected all parliamentarians to say, we are not going to go to participate in a rigged system. And we are not going to sit in a rigged parliament. Because the elections have been rigged. So all of us were not going to parliament. Imagine what could have happened. We could have gone into new elections. There's no way Zanu PF was going to rule alone.
You think so?
Yes.
Do they?
That is a very important point. The Triple C guys, to start with, participated in those elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed. Knowing fully well that by participating, they give Zanu PF legitimacy. And the 2023 elections were unique in the sense that both SADC and the AU election observers condemned the election process as flawed and illegal. And even after they had said so, the Triple C candidates who had won the elections still went ahead and took up their seats. This is the reality of our failed political system. As much as some people have said, oh, why didn't SADC and the AU deny Zanu PF political legitimacy as they did in 2008? That is not being realistic. If the people of Zimbabwe participated, and they did in 2023, in their millions, in a flawed electoral process, knowing fully well that it was flawed. In the case of the ordinary Zimbabweans, because they believed Chamisa, rather idiotic lie that he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes. And then the opposition, who had won some seats, insisted in taking up their seats. SADC would have found it very difficult to say, no, we still go ahead and announce that the regime is illegitimate. If the people of Zimbabwe, opposition and their supporters are willing to participate in a flawed process, it is not for outsiders to decide that the process is flawed and therefore the result is illegal. What is interesting here is that ever since when our friends, the MDC, participated in the flawed 2023 elections, took up their seats even when SADC had condemned them, they have remained in office, in parliament, in Senate, in the councils, to give the regime legitimacy. This is where we are. So in this case here, as long as this is our problem, we are not going to change anything. In the last few days, the two factions of CCC with MPs in parliament, it turned out that when the results were out, all the winning CCC candidates, be it in council, senate, and parliament, took up their seats. And before they had even stayed in their seats for very long, along came Sengezo Tsavangu and recalled a number of them, and thus creating two factions of CCC. In the last few days, these two factions have been fighting it out in parliament. A competition on which of them has got more people and supporters in parliament. To the people of Zimbabwe, what matters is the two factions are just two sides of the same coin. We have already said these MPs, senators, etc., should not have participated in those flawed elections. They should not have taken up their seats after SADC and the AU condemned the election process, but they did out of greed. As for which one of them has got more support in parliament, that is academic. It's of absolutely no relevance to the people of Zimbabwe, except that as long as we continue to pretend that their presence in parliament, in the Senate, and in the councils is making a difference, we're only encouraging them to continue. Come the next elections, you can bet they'll be participating again. Indeed, by our failure to censor these people, we are only encouraging others to do the same. They can participate in flawed electoral processes and get away with it. We have got to accept that their presence in this regime, in this administration, is giving the administration the modicum of legitimacy. If we are serious about ending the case of rigged elections and bad governance, we have got also to identify those who are helping to sustain that very thing we're trying to dismantle. I've said this once, and I'll say it again. MDC CCC leaders have become Zanu PF Team B in all but name. They failed to implement even one token reform. even when they had the golden opportunity to do so during the GNU. And ever since the GNU debacle, they've participated in flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy. In 2023, it was none other than Chamisa himself who was telling the nation and the world at large that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. Of course, he was lying. But the end result was the same. By participating in their millions, the Chamisa Chete Brigade gave the Zanu PF dictatorship legitimacy. So we should stop supporting these opposition leaders who clearly have no commitment to ending the Zanu PF dictatorship, as long as they participate and get a few gravity seats. That's all they care about. We should be smart enough to realize that the MDC CCC have been running with the Mahere during the day and hunting with the Zanu PF hounds at night. After 25 years, not even one token reform implemented. The penny should have dropped. As to the two factions in parliament right now, I know some people have been tempted to say one side is better than the other. What matters here is both sides' participation in the electoral process, presence, taking up their seats even after SADC had condemned the process, and continued presence in parliament is giving Zanu PF legitimacy. And worst of all, we know that these same individuals are gearing to participate in future elections. They will make a big song and dance to try to impress the people that their presence in parliament, in Senate, in the councils is making a difference. It is not. The only time we can have a competent government in Zimbabwe is when we have got free, fair, and credible elections. Because that will also mark a watershed moment where the people can finally say they can hold their elected representative to account. That is what we are aiming for. And at the present moment, we have got sellouts under the guise of opposition leaders who know that Zanu PF is rigging elections to give itself majority and stay in power. And the regime is smart enough to let the opposition win a few seats to give the whole process the pretext, the pretense that Zimbabwe is still a functioning multi-party democracy. We should not be used by these people to endorse something that we know is not there. So to the many Zimbabweans out there, the two factions in parliament right now fighting for dominance is of no relevance to the ordinary people and to our fight to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. Indeed, their presence there is undermining our hope of dealing with this problem, because their continued presence is only to give this regime the modicum of legitimacy, and is only serving to encourage them to participate in future elections, flawed as they may be, and others to join them. And we should not be sucked into helping to perpetuate the very thing that we are trying to end. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.